Hello, story lovers! Tonight, we're diving into a tale of passion, secrets, and choices that could change everything. Hearts will be broken, love will be tested, and every twist will leave you on the edge of your seat. Comment below where you're watching from. And if this story moves you, hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who loves a powerful love story, and tap the bell so you never miss the next thrilling chapter. Ready? Let's begin. Asterisk the crystal chandelier cast fractured light across the polished marble floor of Chateau, Chicago's most exclusive dining establishment. Benjamin Cross straightened his platinum cufflinks as he guided Olivia Sterling through the entrance, her emerald silk dress catching every admiring glance. The 3-carat engagement ring on her finger sparkled like captured starlight. This place is breathtaking. Olivia whispered, her phone already in hand to capture the moment for her million followers. Everything in Benjamin's world had to be perfect, curated, and impressive. At 34, his tech empire Crossfire Industries had made him one of the city's youngest billionaires. The Modern D led them to their reservage window table. Offering a stunning view of the glittering skyline, Benjamin had specifically chosen this spot, knowing Olivia's love for dramatic backdrops. Tonight was crucial. Tomorrow's board meeting would determine his company's future, and Olivia's banking family connections could prove invaluable. "I still can't believe we're engaged," Olivia said, admiring her ring again. "Mother is already planning our spring wedding at the country club." Benjamin smiled, though something hollow echoed in his chest. 6 months of strategic dating had led to this moment. On paper, everything was flawless. Yet an inexplicable emptiness gnawed at him. "Good evening. Welcome to Chateau Laurent." The voice stopped Benjamin's heart. He looked up slowly, and time fractured around him. Standing beside their table in the restaurant's crisp black uniform was Emma Rodriguez, her dark hair pulled back in an elegant bun. Despite her professional smile, shock flickered in her brown eyes. What stole Benjamin's breath completely was the unmistakable curve of her belly beneath the uniform. Emma was pregnant. Very pregnant. "My name is Emma, and I'll be your server tonight," she continued. Her voice steady, despite the tremor Benjamin detected. Her hands gripped the leather menus with practiced composure. But he noticed the slight shake in her fingers. Olivia's sharp gaze moved between them. "Do you two know each other?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Emma's professional mask never slipped, but Benjamin caught the flash of pain across her features. 8 months since their divorce. 8 months since he'd chosen his company's expansion over their marriage. 8 months since he'd last seen the woman he'd once promised to love forever. "We may have crossed paths before," Emma replied diplomatically, placing the menus down. "Shall I give you a moment with the wine selection?" Benjamin found his voice. "How have you been, Emma?" The use of her name drew a razor-sharp look from Olivia. Emma's composure cracked slightly, her hand moving instinctively to her rounded belly. "I've been well, thank you. Our special tonight is pansered salmon with truffle risotto," Emma, Benjamin said softly, starting to rise. Olivia's firm grip on his arm stopped him. "I think we should order," Olivia said, with an edge he'd never heard before. Emma straightened, professional training taking over. "Of course. What can I start you with?" But Benjamin couldn't focus on food. His mind calculated dates and possibilities. 8 months since the divorce. The timing would be perfect. Emma looked 6, maybe 7 months along. "The Chateau Margaux, 2015, he said automatically, ordering their most expensive wine without looking. "Excellent choice," Emma nodded, writing carefully. "I'll have that prepared immediately," as she turned to leave. Benjamin called out desperately, "Emma, wait." She paused, tension visible in her shoulders. When she turned back, her mask was firmly in place, but exhaustion showed beneath it. "When do you get off work?" he asked, ignoring Olivia's sharp intake of breath. "That's inappropriate to ask our server," Olivia interjected icily. Emma's eyes flashed with her old fire. "I finish at 11, but I don't see how that's relevant to your dining experience." "Emma, please. I just need 5 minutes, Benjamin." Olivia's voice turned arctic. What exactly is going on here? Emma looked directly at Benjamin for the first time that evening. In her eyes, he saw everything he'd lost. The woman who'd believed in his dreams when he was nobody, who'd worked double shifts to pay for his business school, who'd loved him when all he had were promises and hope. "Your wine will be right out," she said quietly, walking away. This time Benjamin didn't call after her. Olivia stared across the candlelit table, her perfect composure finally cracking. "Who is she, Benjamin?" He looked at his fiancée, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. Beautiful, polished, connected, but suddenly feeling like a complete stranger. "She's my ex-wife." "Your ex-wife?" Olivia's voice remained carefully controlled, each word precisely enunciated. "The one who supposedly couldn't handle your success?" Benjamin winced, hearing his own explanation thrown back at him. That was how he'd justified their divorce to everyone, including himself. It was easier than admitting the truth that he'd become someone Emma couldn't recognize, someone who valued profit over people. "And she's pregnant," Olivia continued, her analytical mind working through implications. "Very pregnant." The sommelier arrived with their wine, performing the elaborate ritual of presentation and tasting. Benjamin barely registered the process, his attention split between watching Emma navigate between tables and managing the growing storm in Olivia's eyes. "Is it yours?" Olivia asked the moment they were alone. Benjamin stared into his wine glass, seeing his distorted reflection in the dark liquid. "I don't know," but he did know. The timing was too precise for coincidence. 3 months after their divorce papers were signed, Emma had called him crying about her mother's emergency surgery. He'd gone to comfort her, and comfort had led to one desperate night together. Both pretending they could recapture what they'd lost, he'd left the next morning while she slept, unable to face the reality of what they'd done. It was easier to focus on his empire, to prove he'd made the right choice in prioritizing his career. Now, watching Emma serve other tables with quiet dignity, despite her obvious discomfort, the full weight of his choices crashed over him. She was working in a restaurant at 7 months pregnant because of him, because he'd chosen success over love, profit over partnership. Emma returned with their appetizers, setting plates down with practiced efficiency. Up close, Benjamin noticed details he'd missed before, the subtle puffiness in her face, how she favored her left side, the careful way she moved to accommodate her growing belly. "Is there anything else I can get you?" she asked, avoiding eye contact with both of them. "Actually, yes," Olivia said, her voice sharp with barely contained emotion. "I'd like to know when you're due." Emma's hand stilled on the table. "Ma'am, your baby. When are you due?" Benjamin wanted to stop this interrogation, to protect Emma, but the words wouldn't come. "February," Emma replied quietly. Olivia's eyes narrowed as she calculated. "So you conceived in May?" The implication hung between them like poison. Emma's face went pale, and Benjamin felt the walls of his carefully constructed world beginning to collapse. "I think that's enough." Benjamin finally found his voice. "No," Olivia's voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby tables. "I don't think it is enough. May was 3 months after your divorce was finalized, wasn't it, Benjamin?" Emma stepped back, her hand protectively covering her belly. "I should check on your wine." "Don't you dare walk away," Olivia snapped. "We're not done here, actually, we are," Emma said, her old strength surfacing. "This is my workplace, and I won't be subjected to this." She turned to leave, but Benjamin caught her wrist gently. The contact sent electricity through both of them. "Emma, please. We need to talk." She looked down at his hand on her wrist, then into his eyes. For a moment, the restaurant, Olivia, everything else, faded away. It was just the two of them like it used to be. "Let go of her," Olivia commanded, standing abruptly. Her chair scraped against the marble floor. "Let go of her right now." Emma pulled her wrist free, but Benjamin could see tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. "I have other tables to serve," she whispered as she walked away. Benjamin watched the woman who'd once been his everything disappear into the elegant chaos of the restaurant. When he turned back to Olivia, her face was a mask of cold fury. "We're leaving," she announced, gathering her purse. "Olivia, wait. We're leaving now." Or I'm calling my father tonight and telling him exactly what kind of man his bank is considering partnering with. The threat hit like a physical blow. Without her family's support, tomorrow's board meeting would be a disaster. His company's expansion, everything he'd worked for, would crumble. But as he stood to follow Olivia out, Benjamin caught one last glimpse of Emma carrying a tray of dishes, her movements careful and tired. The woman carrying what was likely his child, struggling to survive while he lived in luxury for the first time in years. Benjamin Cross realized he might be about to make the biggest mistake of his life again. The rain hammered against Benjamin's penthouse windows as he stood in his home office at midnight, Olivia's ultimatum echoing in his mind. She'd left the restaurant in icy silence, her final words cutting through him like shattered glass. Choose your past or your future. You can't have both. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It's Emma. We need to talk. Lincoln Park, North Bench. Now, Benjamin stared at the message, his reflection ghost-like in the rain-streaked window. Everything logical told him to delete it, to focus on damage control with Olivia, to protect the empire he'd built. But his hands were already reaching for his keys. Lincoln Park was deserted except for the occasional late-night jogger. Emma sat on their old bench, the same spot where he'd proposed 5 years ago with a modest ring he'd saved months to afford. Now she wore a simple raincoat, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking fragile yet fierce in the lamplight. "You came," she said without turning around. "I had to." Benjamin sat beside her, careful to maintain distance. "Emma, about the baby. It's yours." Her voice was steady, matter of fact. "I know you know that. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" The words hit him like a physical blow. "Why didn't you tell me?" Emma laughed bitterly. "Tell you what, that the man who divorced me because I was holding him back accidentally got me pregnant during a moment of weakness? That I've been working double shifts at 3 different jobs to save enough for the baby while you're planning your society wedding? I would have helped. I would have. With money." Emma's eyes flashed. "That's always been your solution, hasn't it? Throw money at problems until they disappear." Benjamin felt something crack inside his chest. "That's not fair." "Fair." Emma stood, her hands clenched into fists. "Fair was when I believed in you when everyone else said you'd fail. Fair was when I ate ramen for months so you could attend that networking conference. Fair was when I held you through panic attacks about your startup while working 60-hour weeks as a teacher." Each word was a blade twisting deeper. Benjamin had rewritten their history so many times, he'd almost believed his own lies. But facing Emma now, the truth was inescapable. "You're right," he whispered. "I became someone else. Someone I don't even recognize." Emma's anger seemed to deflate, replaced by bone-deep exhaustion. "I loved you, Benjamin. I loved the man who used to dream about changing the world, not just owning it. I can still be that man. Can you?" She sat back down, her hand resting on her belly. "Because that man wouldn't let his pregnant ex-wife work as a server while he flaunts his new fiancée." The accusation stung because it was true. Benjamin had seen Emma's name on the restaurant's staff list when he'd made reservations. He'd chosen that restaurant anyway. Some sick part of him wanting to prove how far he'd risen above their old life. "I chose Chateau Laurent because I knew you worked there," he admitted, the words tasting like ash. "I wanted to show you what you'd given up." Emma stared at him in disbelief. "You did this on purpose? You brought her there to humiliate me?" "No." Benjamin struggled for words that wouldn't make him sound like a monster. "I don't know why I did it. Maybe I wanted to see if you still cared. Maybe I wanted to hurt you the way you hurt me when you said I wasn't the man you married anymore. But I was right," Emma said quietly. "You weren't, and now you're engaged to someone who sees you as a business transaction while carrying your child." They sat in silence, the rain softening to a gentle mist. Finally, Emma spoke again. "I have a proposal for you." Benjamin looked at her, hope flickering in his chest. "Sign away your parental rights. Legally. Completely. I'll raise this baby alone. And you can have your perfect life with your perfect fiancé." No complications, no messy emotions, no reminders of who you used to be. The words hit him like ice water. Emma, no. It's better this way. For everyone. She stood, pulling her coat tighter. I'll have the papers drawn up by Friday. All you have to do is sign them and wire me $50,000 for medical expenses. Then we're even, and you never have to see either of us again. As she started to walk away, Benjamin called out desperately, what if I don't want that? What if I want to be part of this baby's life? Emma turned back, and in the lamplight, he could see tears streaming down her face. Then you'll have to choose who you really are, Benjamin. The man I married, or the one you've become. Because you can't be both. She disappeared into the mist, leaving Benjamin alone on the bench where their love story had begun. Facing the wreckage of everything he'd built and everything he'd destroyed. 3 days later, Benjamin sat in his corner office overlooking the Chicago skyline. The unsigned legal documents spread across his mahogany desk. Emma's ultimatum had been simple. Sign away his parental rights and wire the money, or lose everything he'd worked to build when Olivia's family withdrew their support. His assistant knocked softly. Mr. Cross, Miss Sterling is here for your lunch meeting. Olivia entered like a storm system, elegant and dangerous in her designer suit. She'd been icily professional since the restaurant incident, all business and calculated smiles. Their engagement photos were scheduled for tomorrow, assuming he made the right choice today. Have you handled our little problem? She asked without preamble, settling into the leather chair across from his desk. Her name is Emma, Benjamin said quietly. And she's carrying my child. Your alleged child, Olivia corrected sharply. Have you even demanded a paternity test? The suggestion hit him like a slap. I don't need one. I know it's mine. Olivia's laugh was cold as winter wind. How romantic. Your ex-wife claims you're the father, and you just believe her? This is exactly why you need someone like me, Benjamin. Someone who thinks with their head instead of their heart. Benjamin stared at the woman he'd planned to marry, seeing her clearly for the first time. Beautiful, intelligent, connected, and absolutely ruthless. Everything he'd thought he wanted in a partner. The board meeting is in 2 hours, Olivia continued. My father's bank is prepared to finalize the partnership agreement, assuming you've resolved this complication. The papers are right there, Benjamin. Sign them, wire the money, and we can move forward with our life together. She was right, of course. It was the logical choice. Sign the papers, cut ties with Emma completely, and secure his company's future. Everything he'd worked for would be safe. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Baby's in distress. Emergency room at Chicago General. Come now, Emma. The world tilted. Benjamin was on his feet before he'd fully processed the words. Where are you going? Olivia demanded. The hospital. Emma's an emergency. Absolutely not. Olivia blocked his path to the door. The board meeting is in 2 hours. This could be a trick and manipulation to get you to come running. Benjamin stared at her, seeing something he'd never noticed before. The complete absence of empathy in her eyes. She's having complications with my child, and you think it's a trick? I think it's convenient timing, Olivia replied coolly. But if you walk out that door, if you choose her over everything we've built together, then we're done. The engagement is off, and my family's support disappears with it. Benjamin looked at the unsigned papers on his desk, then at the woman who just revealed the true nature of her heart. Then, I guess we're done. He grabbed his keys and headed for the door, Olivia's furious voice following him down the hallway. The hospital corridors blurred past as Benjamin ran toward the maternity ward. He found Emma in a curtained area connected to monitors, looking pale and frightened. A doctor was speaking to her in low, urgent tones. Benjamin. Emma's voice was weak with surprise. You came. Of course I came. He took her hand, and she didn't pull away. What's happening? The doctor looked between them. Are you the father? Yes, Benjamin said without hesitation. Yes, I am. The baby's showing signs of distress. We may need to perform an emergency C-section. It's risky at this stage, but waiting could be more dangerous. Emma squeezed Benjamin's hand. "I'm scared. I'm here," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." The doctor stepped away to prepare, leaving them alone. Emma looked up at Benjamin, tears streaming down her face. "I lied," she whispered. "At the park. I don't want you to sign those papers. I want our baby to know their father. I want them to know the man I fell in love with, not the one you became." Benjamin brought her hand to his lips. "I'm sorry. For everything, for becoming someone you couldn't recognize, for choosing money over love, for almost making the same mistake twice." "The board meeting," Emma said weakly. "Can go to hell," Benjamin replied. "Nothing matters except you and our baby." As they wheeled Emma toward the operating room, Benjamin realized that for the first time in years he'd chosen love over logic, heart over profit. Whatever happened next, whatever he lost in the process, this was who he was meant to be. The man Emma had married, the father his child deserved, the person he'd almost forgotten existed. 6 weeks later, Benjamin sat in his small downtown apartment, holding his daughter Sarah while Emma slept in the bedroom. The space was a far cry from his penthouse, but it felt more like home than anywhere he'd lived in years. The board meeting had gone exactly as Olivia predicted. Without her family's backing, Crossfire Industries was sold to a competitor for a fraction of its worth. Benjamin's empire crumbled, taking most of his fortune with it. The business magazines called it one of the year's most spectacular falls from grace. He'd lost everything he'd thought mattered, and gained everything that actually did. "She has your eyes," Emma said softly, appearing in the doorway wearing one of his old college t-shirts. The emergency delivery had been successful, but recovery was slow. Benjamin had spent every day since then taking care of both of them. "She has your stubborn streak," he replied, as Sarah refused to settle. "She knows exactly what she wants." Emma smiled, settling beside him on the couch. The past weeks had been careful and tentative, rebuilding trust that had been shattered. They weren't the same people who divorced 8 months ago, but they were learning who they could become together. "I saw the interview request from Forbes," Emma said. "About your business philosophy renaissance?" Benjamin laughed. Several smaller companies had approached him with partnership offers, intrigued by his story of choosing family over profit. Apparently, his spectacular failure had made him more interesting than his success ever had. "I turned it down," he said. "I'm not ready to be anyone's cautionary tale yet. What about the teaching position at Northwestern? The entrepreneurship program?" Benjamin looked down at Sarah, who had finally drifted off to sleep. "I think I'd like that. Teaching people how to build something meaningful instead of just profitable." Emma rested her head on his shoulder. "The man I married always wanted to change the world. Maybe I still can. Just differently than I thought." His phone buzzed with a text. "Olivia, as she had every few days since the hospital, when you're done playing house with your charity case, call me. There are ways to rebuild what you threw away." Benjamin deleted the message without responding as he had all the others. Some bridges were meant to stay burned. "No regrets?" Emma asked, having seen the text. Benjamin looked around their modest apartment, at the woman who'd never stopped believing in the person he could be, at the tiny miracle sleeping in his arms. He thought about his old life of empty luxury and strategic relationships, of a world where everything had a price and nothing had real value. "Not one," he said, and meant it completely. As snow began to fall outside their window, Benjamin Cross realized he'd finally found his way home. Not to a place, but to the people who mattered, to the man he'd always been meant to become. Sarah stirred in her sleep, and both parents leaned in to watch their daughter dream. In her perfect, tiny face, they could see infinite possibilities. A future built not on ambition or profit, but on love, sacrifice, and second chances. The kind of future that couldn't be bought or sold, only earned one choice at a time. The end.